With the new Tomodachi Dreams trailer, we're now at a whopping 3 minutes of total footage. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of info this trailer, mostly confirmations of things I've brilliantly deduced analyzing the first one. They're still hiding the right side of buildings, and it's still unclear how much control the players will have over the life of the Miis. So even though it's a great trailer, I couldn't bring myself to make an analysis about it. There's not that much to analyze. I'd end up tangenting about the apartment having things that seem to change per Mii, or making jokes about this mouth and pointing out the default pattern is just a bunch of mouth shapes. Oh, and also 1,000 condescending I told you so's. I told you the eye shines were a new art style and not just makeup. I told you there's no such thing as a third age group. I told you 360 control was coming, yada yada. Only thing I missed then is the little handles on top of the houses, which after this new trailer just seemed like a visual indicator that you can pick up and reposition the houses, like with the cursor that you have. I'm gonna push my luck and tell you that for these trailers I told you so moment, people are celebrating that you can now force Miis to meet each other, but I've got a sneaking suspicion this mechanic where you drag and drop Miis and they chat is tied to a specific trouble. I'm mostly sure. It's true some variations show no troubles in the UI bit that otherwise does have something, but I guess we'll find out how much impact this actually has later. I did make fun of Hollow Knight fans, and look at us now. Yes, you're dead. Fuck you. Fuck you. It's an established rule that I only hit with Tomodachi at this point. And that's all the definite information I found. Gifts are back, judging by this me with a Switch and this guy with a guitar, but I don't think that's groundbreaking information or anything. There's this guy breaking it down at the start. Look at him go! The only interesting thing I can speculate on is this weird cut after the Mii gets fed. In Tomodachi Live, when you help a Mii with a trouble, they end up giving you a tiny bit of cash. And while this is not definite proof since the cut is earlier than it should be, I feel like this cut is meant to hide that Miis may not give you the same resources as they did before. The only difference I noticed in this overhead shot of the island is that there's a bundle of things next to quick build. Could be because the first trailer used an older version of the model, but every other model and texture looks unchanged. This patch of grass here is exactly in the same place in both trailers. So if this means something, it's probably that Miis will give you both money and building materials, which could also explain this weird orange liquid inside the fountain, or why they are trying to hide the right side of the building so much as if they could reveal some sort of mechanic that's present in other parts of the game. But I don't know. If I get like that, I'd end up speculating dumb stuff like nighttime being absent because they've got a big secret and the game turns into Swordplay Showdown at night. It's longer, but surprisingly less substantial, and even the release date they gave us remains super vague. At least no one's getting majorly crunched here. I'm glad to hear that one of my most anticipated games ever is not being built on the suffering of a bunch of Japanese developers. I gotta admit I have several worries about this game, but there's one in particular that I feel is kind of controversial, and initially I wanted to put it in a bigger video, but it was so long that I decided to dedicate this entire video to it. You've read the title, you know why you're here. Miitopia's makeup system. I don't want it. Exactly, I don't want it exactly. This is one of those things I say and people churn on the ground. I've talked about this before, but I feel like I haven't touched upon it enough. The elephant in the room is that a lot of people will tell me that if I don't like the feature, I can simply ignore it and let everyone have their fun, just don't use it. And look, slime, I get that, trust me, but I think my concerns about it far outweighed the positives. It's not about Miis having to be simple, it's about how overcomplexity will damage the gameplay. Here's everything about Miis that having makeup hurts. Creativity, the magic of Mii sharing, the utility of the Mii Maker, the idea of a lookalike, and the non-dilution of the Mii IP. Creativity is probably the weakest argument I've seen people who are against makeup use. It's true you've got to be creative to push the limits of the old system enough to recreate different characters and people. It's easier to go in depth on every option when you've got fewer options to play around with, but that kind of feels like you're assuming that makeup does not require creativity too. It does. Your concern is probably that it stops being a feature everyone can use and becomes a thing a lot of people can't do. They either lack the skills or the time. This directly affects the experience of sharing Miis and makes the actual Mii Maker itself a less important feature. Sharing a Mii before was easy. You took your Mii, created a QR code for them, and now everyone could use them. Beyond the advantages where they already have the right interior and clothing, it saves players time and effort. Even if they aren't completely satisfied with the Mii, they're free to modify it to fit their vision better. Starting from the release of Miitopia, there was a change to that. Now you use creator codes. My main gripe with creator codes is that they sorta lock out people without a Nintendo Online membership out of the coolest parts of the game. Most players, for as skilled as they are, won't make the recreation as good as the one they found online. They no longer have the ability to simply copy the Mii by hand either, so by not spending the extra money that costs, they are actually getting a worse gameplay experience. You turn the situation into the Squidward meme. Aha, so maybe that just means we just gotta bring back QR codes. Easy, but stop right there. 100 pieces of makeup are a lot of pieces of makeup. You've got to store these in a picture that's too compact to somehow hold 100 pieces, their type, color, location, rotation, scale, and whether they belong to a specific layer group, among other things. That said, if anyone who actually knows about QR codes knows I'm wrong here, I'd love to see a fascinating video shutting me the hell up. Regardless of all that, beyond the problems with a group of players being locked out from a core feature, downloading a share Mii is just the end of the line. Being creative with it would be a waste of time for most. That also means the Mii Maker's utility would become reduced. Makeup allows for exact and complex recreations of characters. Past a certain point though, players attempting to tackle the creation of a Mii won't need to. There's already a perfect recreation by someone else. Once someone's done the cartoon awkward Squidward, creating and playing with the Squidward that doesn't look right stops feeling like the result of a system with limits, and becomes what's universally known as a skill issue. This really separates players. Now there's a group of players who are artists, whom are skilled and capable of using the tool, and a group of players whom are something akin to reposters. By injecting high skill into the feature, people who aren't skilled at it have less reason to use it. It's so much easier to just repost the pretty one and never engage with the actual system. If you want to make a character that no one's made yet, I don't know, maybe they are an OC or whatever, you're now forced into an odyssey because otherwise your creation is going to look lame alongside the hyper-accurate clone. Even if you walk away from stylized characters, creating real people lookalikes is already super easy with the current tools, and they are adding more from what we've seen. If your goal isn't to recreate a stylized character, makeup becomes a lot less necessary. I believe this makes the Mii Maker a worse mechanic, for everyone who doesn't want to be an artist, or for anyone who wants to be an artist but isn't that good at it. It's only great for those skilled and those who don't care. Time for a small tangent. My argument is not involving any children Miis. It's evident that you can just pass the makeup from the kid. That would look really stupid, so it would simply be up to the player to give that kid any makeup they want. Most players will probably not even know how to do that well enough, so we're probably going to see kids as a mechanic be super unpopular in the event that makeup does come back. So far, I think it's easy to interpret all of these arguments, which I think are already valid enough, as a complaint against just getting good, bro. And they are. I know my skills as an artist are lacking, and instead of looking at the Mii Maker as an opportunity to be creative like I did before, with makeup, I start looking at it as a way to further prove I'm actually a horrible artist and should stop making Miis unless I've got 200 to 500 hours to spare. So let's move away from my thinly veiled envy and discuss how recreations impact the gameplay of Tomodachi more than they impact the gameplay of Miitopia. My favorite food in real life is key lime pie. Not this type of it though, so let's instead consider my second favorite food that actually looks somewhat to how I like eating it. Here's what happens when I give my Mii some smoked salmon. What do you mean he doesn't like this? This should be universal, giving a character some food item that they can negligibly adore and them absolutely hating it. An experience so frequent, I've seen people want the ability to outright decide food preferences in Tomodachi Dreams. But they fail to consider is one of the main narrative features of Tomodachi. Every Mii in your island isn't the person they are based on. They are lookalikes. Didn't I pin this argument to the wall somewhere? Don't worry, you're gonna understand this joke in the future. This fellow isn't you. They're their own thing. That's why they get to marry their crush and you don't. This goes beyond a feel. I know recreations of characters further disconnect players from the gameplay experience, an issue in Miitopia, where characters are distinctly role-playing, and at most take actions that the player can justify backwards. It's not, "Man, that character would never do this," but I wonder why this character would do this. The fantasy in this scenario brings a lot of wiggle room that you don't get with Tomodachi's approach, a slice-of-life scenario that thrives on being absurd but still grounded. I gotta point out, I'm not saying players shouldn't be able to see the characters through their chosen lens, but the suspension of disbelief is going to become a lot harder when your character looks virtually the same as what they represent. You'd inevitably start feeling some form of disconnect the longer the character acts like an individual entity, losing sight of the appeal that made Tomodachi such a special game. Maybe a little, but maybe a lot. But fine, let's assume you don't care about all that. You don't create Miis, you download them. And if they don't look exactly the same, you don't play. Well, here's a question that's deeper than it sounds. What about this is a Mii? Sure, the creation process may seem like the standard Mii creation process, but simply downloading it certainly does not, and that unintentionally leads to the dilution of the Mii IP. The Mii IP is not doing very well. The last time we got a fully original Mii title excluding sequels or remakes was the original Miitopia. It will be 10 years old like 9 months after the release of Living the Dream. I'm not just talking vibes. Explain how this Mii is going to let people know this character is from this IP. How does this image sell? I'm talking about a marketing issue. Miis with makeup don't have a brand image. Makeup could be replaced by any character creation tool and have the same effect because the results of the system are far removed from the system's original identity. Miis stop looking like Miis, and eventually there's no reason to keep parts as a concept in. A PNG would do. Why keep an old system updated when you can replace it with a simpler, faster, newer system? By adding the same makeup from Miitopia into Living the Dream, Nintendo would be gently pacing out Miis, a game mechanic, and replacing them with an art tool like any other. Making a Mii with makeup isn't gameplay, it's artistry, which of course has its own value, it's fun in its own way, but it isn't a conductive part to the broader gameplay experience and the IP's identity. So I hope this explains why "Buddy, just don't use the feature" is a bad argument. It's not about players who don't like the feature being able to ignore it, it's about those players having a potentially worse experience if they don't use the feature while simultaneously hurting other aspects of the gameplay for everyone involved. As the Mii IP is drugged into irrelevancy, players that don't use the feature by choice are liable to have less fun. When the system is simply superior and has no limits, you're asking players who feel like that system betrays their vision of the game to enjoy it less, to not use the game's tools, which in turn means playing against the game. Playing against a game's design is not inherently bad. Some games exist and thrive of players that ignore the game design for their own amusement. The difference is that in this scenario, playing against the design would not add, but take away. I think it's important to understand that people who don't want makeup aren't trying to make the game less fun. That'd be incredibly lame. What we want is to remind people that while having no limits is fun, playing around limits creatively is actually also a form of fun, especially when those limits are the identity of the game. Limits aren't just fun. They are fundamental to the Mii system. We don't want to take away fun from you. We think the alternative of limits creates a funner, more homogeneous gameplay experience. That said, yeah, makeup is fine. I don't think I'd like die or anything if it came back. It's not a deal breaker. But let me tell you, there are better solutions. What I don't want is the makeup from Miitopia. What I do want is the neat things makeup allowed us to do, primarily asymmetry. Ideally, the Mii Maker in Tomodachi Dreams is gonna get a good upgrade without completely removing the makeup features. I don't want them completely gone, just reduced in the following manner. 5 makeup for face feature, and the ability to put different makeup to different expressions for effect. This way, players still have to use the recognizable face features, but can supplement them with stylized bits to get the characters looking closer to their original counterparts. Not enough for a recreation, but more than enough for accuracy. These should also be independent for each eye, eyebrow, and ear, so you can have something like, say, Kratos' makeup for a total of 55 pieces like so. Notice the 10 pieces for face painting independent of the skin base color. This way, both groups of for and against makeup can have what they want, and the simplicity is kept so that players can learn these features without having to go on a sabbatical to learn the skill. No. Makeup definitely has giant positives. I just think it needs some tweaking to turn it from a replacement of Miis to a powerful supplement that retains the identity.
As for Mii sharing, reality is I don't know how to solve it. Maybe you could fit them into QRs, but guess what? Funny Console doesn't have a way to read QRs. Switch 2 has a method, as in with Totok. I did door for this functionality to come back in LTD for convenience, but you're still locking the feature behind the ownership of a Switch 2 paywall. I guess either way, it'd be better because at least this way, the game's lifespan isn't tied to Nintendo's service for it. And I think that's already a net positive.
Also think of the memes. Think of the memes! Without makeup, there's no memes, and without memes, Miitopia Switch would not have been as relevant. So yeah, it's a good marketing decision to keep makeup to some extent. I do not think it's going to work like that. No way am I get my key lime pie and 82. My bet is either makeup from Miitopia will be back and I'll end up downloading 80% of my islanders and therefore barely touching the Mii editor, then looking at my lame lookalike and feeling sad that he's ugly, or we'll get super simplified makeup options that will let us get like only slightly more accurate and will forever miss the ability to do whatever the fuck we want. But slime, I think it's okay to dream. It makes me ecstatic to see some of the changes they've made already to the editor that do support that idea of keeping the Mii editor simple while simultaneously letting the technology move to the next evolution that doesn't completely replace it. The eye shines and lip rotation letting us do so many cool things already, and the ability to finally remove noses as the cosmos dictated. The wigs coming back and looking like natural hairpieces is already a massive step up for hairstyles, and the fact that you can combine multiple wrinkle and old makeup options as seen with this old lady is like fantastic. Only thing I need is broader limits on where you can move parts, and like, we won. Ultimately, I have no idea what's going to happen here, but I am for sure excited to create more Miis, whatever's the case. Let's just hope, if push comes to shove, that the Miis don't lose too much relevancy in the wake of a system that, while innovative, also diffuses the idea behind Miis, until they slowly start to disappear. There's 9 other things I don't want in Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. But this video just has a really cool title and works really well on its own, so I decided to split them in 2. If you wanna see those other 9 things I don't like, go click on that other video. Otherwise, you can like and watch my other content. Either way, even if you think I'm stupid for having this argument, I really thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far. If you did, comment something about smoked salmon. Win it, Patreons!